Hey wildlings, today I wanted to start a new video series called HedgeWitch Diaries, where I'm going to share with you and tell you the stories of spirits that I've worked with, everything from the green folk to deities to plant spirits, so that you can hear my journeys, how I saw them, how they presented, how I got to where I was going, and hopefully you can find some inspiration and some magic in these stories as I share my journeys with you. So today I wanted to talk about a recent journey that I did with mugwort. So this is the beautiful piece of mugwort that is now covered in my cat's hair because she lay on it. But this is the beautiful piece of mugwort that I collected from a farmland margin the other day when I was out walking with my partner. And I collected her at the edge of two fields where two fields joined, so it was a crossroads, a beautiful liminal space on our walk. And it's actually been really difficult for me to find mugwort here, even though it's so common. It's been quite hard for me to find it, and I finally found a whole patch of her on this walk, so I knew it was the perfect time to do a journey with her. And so for this journey I wanted to meet mugwort in the form of dance. Now, trance dance and ecstatic dance is a form of meditation where, rather than being sat down and keeping still, you put on some music and you essentially sway and you begin to dance until you get lost in the music to such a degree that you start to be able to visualize and journey to meet a specific deity, plant spirit, anything like that. This is a form of meditation that I really like and that I personally find really powerful for me. I've been dancing my entire life, so it feels deeply connected to me, and I find it a really easy way for me to shift my space. I can very easily enter a liminal space when I get lost in music that I find really powerful and beautiful. So I set my intention to dance with her. And when I began the dance, I danced literally with the plant the whole time in my hands. And at first I was looking at her through my eyes being open, and then as the music started to take me, I started to close my eyes and get lost in it, and then that is when I started to visualize. Now, usually the first time that I see a member of the green folk come to this realm, i.e. the middle world, I usually find, or at least I have for the plant spirits, that they will present themselves with a mask of some description. So it was very obvious for Willow when I journeyed with Willow, and it was very obvious for mugwort as well. And the mask that I saw initially was very much like her leaves, this beautiful, delicate silver and light green mask that was sort of worn across the eyes, lots of foliage, really, really delicate, very silvery when it caught the light. And the eyes were a beautiful white glowing light, not in a scary way at all, in a really beautiful, enchanting sort of way, in that they seemed to glow like moonlight, and the light seemed to be phasing in and out, very ephemeral, really beautiful. And so I knew that when that figure appeared to me, then it was time for me to journey to them. Very quickly I was standing at the start of a bridge, a wooden bridge that was in a deciduous woodland, but there was quite a few pine trees there as well when I looked around. And I began to walk across the bridge, and I could see at the other end of the bridge there was a robed figure in a kind of light beige, natural linen sort of colour that was hooded, and they were walking to the other end of the bridge, and so I followed them. And what I always do when I start to visualise is I look down at my feet so I can start to see my feet taking the steps, and this is me projecting my conscience so that it is actively putting it out there that I am journeying from one state of being to another, and that I'm making the transition and the shift in awareness and consciousness into a liminal space. Now, as I jumped off of the bridge after I had crossed it, I jumped straight into mud, and it was kind of like a sticky mud that you kind of get in a woodland after it's rained quite heavily when you go near a stile. So I knew that I was really rooted deep in earth in this connection, because it was straight away my feet were planted on the earth. So I knew I was in the realm of earth and the realm of the plants. I saw the robed figure go up and over the ride of a woodland, and a ride is essentially sort of a hump that's in certain woodlands here in the UK, and often really old rides, you will see that there is a large tree or multiple trees that are sort of growing along it, and their roots are essentially creating the ride and the rays of earth. So after we got over the ride, I was at a clearing, and it seemed like there was quite a few small wooden huts that were sort of bordering this clearing. There was these large circular benches that were in the centre, and then some sort of a central pit that I can only assume was a sort of fire pit. And then there was these sort of wooden, almost a wicker actually, like almost wicker thatched buildings that were sort of on the outskirts of it. And the robed figure went off and then came back and sat down on the bench, and I just intuitively went down and sat on the bench before they got over to me. And when they did come back, I was actually quite surprised, because I anticipated to see some sort of a human form, because often when the inhabitants of Faery present themselves to us, they present themselves in a glamour of something that we can perceive easily or that we feel comfortable within. That is often how they'll present themselves to us, so it's a language that our own internal psychology can understand. So I assumed that they were going to present themselves in a human form, but actually what I found, which was so beautiful, is when they took off their hood, they almost had mouse-like features. Now, not a mouse, because they actually almost looked like a mixture between a mouse and a hare. They had that kind of a facial structure, if you can imagine the two sort of merged together. And their skin, again, was sort of a very similar, a bit more beigey than the sort of silvery green that you get on mugwort, but it was that kind of colour. And the ears were kind of, I want to say, more hair-like, in the sense that they were long and kind of came down here, but they were also kind of mouse-like because they were rounded. But they had the warmest eyes, and I was so beautifully surprised when I saw how they presented themselves to me. And as I said, they often present themselves with a mask when they come from Faery to us in this realm, when they meet us, and then when we go and journey into their realm and follow them, that is when they can take the mask off, and then they can show us the form that they wish to present themselves with. So I sat with them for a few moments, and the feeling that I got energetically was that they were more of a neutral energy. So although mugwort is historically classified as a feminine plant, I do feel like the spirit lent more towards a feminine energy if you had to make it go masculine or feminine. I definitely felt like it lent slightly more towards the feminine, but to be honest, the way that I felt was that it was a much more neutral energy that I was sitting with. Now, after we sat down on the bench for a few moments and I got to take in how mugwort looked, I turned and I saw my co-walkers with me, and I was sort of distracted with them for a little while. And during that time, mugwort had gone off, and then they came back and they handed me a scroll. And so I had my co-walkers on one side and mugwort on the other. And as they handed me this scroll, I unraveled it and I saw all these beautiful inscriptions of light that mugwort told me were sigils. And so I spent time looking over these sigils and memorizing them, and sort of in a half lucid state and a half trance state. I had my notebook nearby, and so as I was literally straddling the two worlds, as we refer to it in HedgeWitchcraft, I was writing the sigils as they were being shown to me, and I was asking if they could show me exactly how to draw them. Now, I won't share the sigils with you because they were sigils for me to use in my own personal craft, but they were sigils such as insight, doorways to open and close, things like that. And they were really beautiful and very unique. And I knew then that to work with mugwort was to understand the language of Faery. So I felt truly honoured that I could see these beautiful sigils that I could use and start to incorporate in my own craft. And then that went on for quite a while, and then I started to see other humans that were sat on the other benches that were around the fire or the central pit. It was daylight, so there wasn't any fire that was on, but I could see that there was a fire pit, and that was the way that it was all sort of laid out. I started to get flashes of other humans, just little flashes of what they looked like and what they were doing that were in the clearing, and I knew that they were just other people that were also journeying with mugwort at that same time. I did it late in the evening, so I can only anticipate that there was lots of other people doing mugwort journeying at that same time as well. I didn't drink any mugwort tea and I didn't smoke any mugwort. I literally was just dancing with the plant. I do have some mugwort tea, but I really wanted to just hold this specific piece of plant in my hand and just dance and journey with her in this aspect. And it was really powerful and beautiful, and it came through so clearly, and I felt so held and so loved, and I can't wait to journey more with her. So when I saw everybody else there, I kind of knew that it was time for me to start going. I could feel that my energy was starting to lack a little bit. So I started to make my way back to the bridge, and I thanked Mugwort for the gifts that it had shared with me. I also got a little peek into how I looked in the vision as well, and I almost looked goat-like. I know so many of you are going to laugh at that, but I almost looked, maybe fawn-like is a better way to put it. I had the sort of ears that kind of came out here, and I had the horns that were sort of curled back, and my face looked like my face, but it didn't look like my face. And I also had that same colour of light in my eyes that Mugwort had shown me when I saw them in this realm, so that kind of light that was coming through. So I can only assume that as I journeyed into their world, I also had to have a mask on, just as they had a mask on when they came into this realm. Anyway, I went back to the bridge, and as I said, I thanked them and I said goodbye. And I journeyed back. I came back into my body in the room, and I wrote down as much of it as I could possibly remember. So that was my beautiful story time with dancing with mugwort. As I said, if you're not comfortable with ingesting mugwort, or you can't for medical reasons, as I said, I literally just collected this from out in nature. It felt like the right time, and it felt like the right place, obviously asking permission to take the plant before I took any of her. And I left a small offering of water from my water bottle as well at the base of the plant that I took it from. But I wanted to share so that other people might be able to find a different format that they can journey with plants if, as I said, they feel like they can't ingest any of it. And hopefully this was enjoyable for you to listen to. I am very much looking forward to my future journeys with mugwort, and I am sure that I will share more excerpts from my personal rituals and diary entries with you in the coming months, so do let me know if you enjoyed this one. I really hope you enjoyed this video, wildlings, and if you did, please don't forget to subscribe to join us here on the channel where we explore green witchcraft and hedge witchcraft, and I hope I will see you in our next video.